Well, the instability created in Europe by the First World War from 1914 to 1918 set another stage for the international conflict, World War II. World War I never really ended due to the Treaty of Versailles. Hitler was fueled by his hate fire because of the Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles was a treaty that was signed to basically blame Germany for the destruction of World War I. It also made sure that Germany did not bring back another war, because why bother doing that? Because we don't want that. So it was so that Germany had no military power, but slowly Hitler stopped listening to the Treaty of Versailles, and he signed a treaty with Italy and Japan that would help his world domination. So Hitler sent troops to go and occupy Austria in 1938, and then a year later he sent troops to Czechoslovakia. In late August 1939, Hitler and the Soviet leader Joseph Stalin signed the German-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact, which was like they worked together to destroy multiple countries. That did not work. On September 1st, 1939, Hitler invaded Poland from the west. 2 days later, France and Britain declared war on Germany, beginning World War II. On September 17th, Soviet troops invaded Poland from the east. Under attack from both sides, Poland fell quickly. By early 1940, Germany and the Soviet Union had divided and controlled over all of the nations according to the secret protocol appended to the Non-Aggression Pact. Stalin's forces then moved to occupy the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, and then defeated the resident Finland in the Russo-Finnish War. Germany and the Allies were talking to the news media about World War II being a phony war because Germany was just out of nowhere insane. So they claimed it was a phony war. But at sea, the German Navy faced off in a heated battle, and a lethal German U-boat submarine struck a merchant ship shipping bound for Britain, sinking more than 100 vessels in the first 4 months of World War II. On April 9th, 1940, Germany simultaneously invaded Norway, occupied Denmark, and then the war began. On May 10th, German forces swept through Belgium and the Netherlands in what became known as Blitzkrieg, which is our lightning war. It's like you invade quickly and you go in fast.
Think the bombing of London.
Yeah. 3 days later, Hitler's troops crossed the Mezzanine River where they would have met the French troops. The British came with great force using tanks and guns. The British troops evacuated the sea by Dunkirk in late May, with France on the verge of falling. Benito Mussolini of Italy put his Pact of Seal, which is an alliance pact, with Hitler into action. And Italy declared war against France and Britain on June 10th. On June 14th, German troops entered Paris. There was a new government formed by Marshal Philippe Pétain. Sorry if I bombed that. France was subsequently divided into two zones, one under German military and one under France, German occupation, and the other of Marshall's government. No sooner than later, Hitler turned his attention to the British. German planes bombed Britain extensively throughout the summer of 1940, including night raids on London and other industrial centers that caused heavy civilian casualties and damage.
It should be said, though, that that didn't actually hurt their morale, considering that pub visits actually went up during that time. So, there's that.
People had balls of steel back then.
They still do.
Oh, yeah, they do.
Continue.
Luckily, the Royal Air Force defeated the German Air Force, the
Luftwaffe?
Or, no, yeah,
Luftwaffe.
Yeah, Luftwaffe. In the Battle of Britain. With the British out of military resources, they looked towards the U.S. for help, and the Lend-Lease Act was put into place. By early 1941, Hungary, Romania, and Bulgaria had joined the Axis, and German troops overran Yugoslavia and Greece that April. Hitler conquest of the Balkans was the precursor for his real objective, an invasion of the Soviet Union, whose vast territory would give them the German master race of the Lebensraum it needed. The other half of Hitler's strategy was to
Welcome to History Club. Or
extermination
not.
of the Jews from
Please close the
throughout
door.
German-occupied
Someone close the door.
Europe. Plans for the final solution were introduced around the time of the Soviet offensives, and other of the 3 years, more than 4 million Jews would perish in the death camps established in occupied in Poland. On June 22, 1941, Hitler ordered an invasion of the Soviet Union, codenamed Operation Barbarossa. The Soviet troops were outnumbered. The Germans got within 220 miles of Moscow by mid-July. Hitler and his troops were at a disagreement and then stopped their fighting until October. When did the U.S. join the war? On
Very
December
late.
7, 1941, 360 Japanese aircraft attacked the major U.S. Navy base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, taking the Americans completely by surprise and claiming the lives of more than 2,300 troops. No one actually believed that it was going to happen. They thought that it was going to happen somewhere in like the Philippine area. They were like, oh, this is going to happen. We're not fine. Even Roosevelt was just like, that's bogus. And then when he got the telegram or whatever, the message saying that that they had just bombed us, he was just like, what the heck? And all the people that were at Pearl Harbor were shocked and stunned, and it was a big mess, an ordeal.
Also, some of the soldiers who were on the ships that were bombed didn't know how to swim.
Yeah, that's a very true fact.
That wasn't a
if you're in the
requirement.
Navy, you should learn how to swim. Like, I mean, if you're on a boat, learn to swim, people.
It wasn't a requirement back then.
If you're on a boat,
Now
technically you
it's a
don't need to know
requirement.
how to swim.
You should, because if it sinks.
Yes, but in theory.
Continuing with the presentation.
On December 8th, the U.S. declared war on Japan, thus entering the war. On June 1942, After a long string of Japanese victories, the U.S. Pacific Fleet won the Battle of Midway. This was a turning point for the war. Allies had also had success against the Japanese forces in a series of battles from August 1942 to February 1943, helping turn the tide further in the Pacific. Sorry, I'm lost for a minute.
Hello, lost for a minute.
Did I talk about this?
I don't know. What is this?
Try it.
Oh, no, I didn't. The Allies had success against the forces of a series of battles of through August through February to make a big turning point. In mid-1943, Allied Navy forces began an aggression counterattack against Japan, involving a series of infamous assaults on key Japanese-held islands in the Pacific. Assaults. This was called island hopping, so they went from island to island to island to try to push back the Japs and to get rid of them. This island hopping strategy proved success, and the Allied forces moved closer to their ultimate goal of invading the Japanese homeland. In North Africa, the British and American forces had defeated the Italians and the Germans by 1943. An Allied invasion of Sicily and Italy followed, and Mussolini's government fell in 1943. Through Allied fighting against the Germans in Italy would continue until 1945. On World War II's Eastern Front, the Soviet counteroffensive launched in November 1942 ended the bloody Battle of Stalingrad, which had seen some of the fiercest combat of the war. The approach of winter, along the dwindling food and medical supplies, spelled the end for the German troops here, and last of them surrendered on January 31st, 1943. On June 6, 1944, celebrated as D-Day, the Allies began a massive invasion of Europe, landing 156,000 British, Canadian, and American soldiers on the beaches of Normandy, France. In response, Hitler poured all the remaining strength of his army into the Western Europe. Ensuring Germany's defeat in the east, Soviets soon advanced into Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, while Hitler gathered his forces to drive the Americans and British back from Germany into the Battle of the Bulge, December 1944 to January 1945, the last major German offensives of the war. On February 1945, the Allies landed in a land invasion on Germany. On May 8th, Germany formally surrendered. Hitler is dead, and he committed suicide on April 30th in the Berlin bunker. Harry Truman, Winston Churchill, and Joseph Stalin sat down and discussed the ongoing war on Japan, as well as the peace settlement with Germany. Germany was split up into occupation zones controlled by the Soviet Union, British, and the USA and France. On September 2nd, Japan formally surrendered. World War II proved to be the most devastating international conflict of history, taking the lives of over 35 to 60 million people, including 60 million Jews who died at the hands of the Nazis. Millions were injured, and still more lost their homes and property. The legacy of the war would include the spread of communism from the Soviet Union into Eastern Europe, as well as eventually the triumph in China. The global shift in power from Europe to two rival superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, that would face off against each other in the Cold War. The end.
Any questions? Right, we have a question.
Yes.
Didn't we not find Hitler's body?
That not entirely. It was
Hi.
Thought we did.